CRLA prides itself on serving the most vulnerable communities. We serve the people who are trying to keep a roof over their heads, to access quality education, healthcare, the safety net. We serve people who are white, Black, Latino, and immigrants. We serve the disabled, LGBT community, and anybody who needs legal assistance in rural California.
In those days, in the 60s, when President Johnson created the War on Poverty, the idea was that civil lawyers could actually impact the lives and the rural conditions of the poor anywhere in the country.
Part of what it was like to come at that time was the extension of the civil rights movement, which had centered really on the South into the population in California, the Mexican-American community, the Chicano community at the time.
And we were trying to do whatever we could, whatever was necessary to help our community.
Constitutionally and ethically, we in this country should all be able to seek after justice. The reality is that poor people very often cannot because they don't have the resources, therefore they don't have the lawyers. So CRLA has been able to bring that measure of justice, which I think is very important to them individually and I think for democracy.
Its founder, Jim Lorenz, had this vision that just like a corporate law firm could serve the wealthy, there could actually be a nonprofit corporate law firm to serve the rural poor.
It was a exciting time, and I had very motivated colleagues who shared my interest in using the law as a vehicle for social justice.
At that time, CRLA was like Ivy League lawyers who were coming to California to do something to improve the conditions of farm workers. It wasn't just to provide lawyers to poor farm workers, it was to change social conditions.
They hired people from the community. Outreach workers, community workers, that knew their community and that they, as liaisons, could speak to the people in the community about what those problems were.
On its founding board, you had not only lawyers, which was expected, but you also had labor organizers, like the Latino organizer Cesar Chavez, Dolores Huerta, the Filipino organizer Lariat Leong.
By 1968, after 2 years of CRLA's existence, if you cared about justice, if you cared about equal rights, then you've heard about CRLA.
One of the first big lawsuits that CRLA brought made it possible to ban the use of the short-handled hoe.
I first became aware of the short-handled hoe in early 1967 when I first arrived at the office in Salinas. And Jose Perez, a community worker, came in and said, "You want to know what's important?" And he handed me a short-handled hoe. El Cortito, it's killing the backs of the workers. It's a torture instrument. If you want to do anything that matters, find out a way to do something about this.
Hector and I did a survey to show that the disability of farm workers caused by the short hoe was like 5 times as high among farm workers who did not use the short-handled hoe. And we're talking about permanent back injury.
And we began recruiting orthopedic surgeons that filed affidavits in the case. And what they showed was that a farm worker using the short hoe by the time he or she was 40 would have the back of a 70 or 75-year-old. And it's irreversible. And the Safety Commission ruled that no, if your back didn't give out immediately, it wasn't a problem.
And we filed in the Supreme Court and they threw us out, and then another court threw us out, and 5 years after it all started, we finally won in the California Supreme Court. And now it almost makes you cry to drive down through the fields and see the workers out there doing the same work with the long-handled hoe.
But there were 9 children, and she couldn't believe her child was assigned to what they were called classes for the educational mentally retarded, EMR classes.
California at that time had 13% of the students were Latinos, and 26% of the kids labeled mentally retarded were Latino. I mean, the odds of that by chance are, they can't happen.
And we hired school psychologists to retest them in Spanish and to retest them on better instruments and prove to our satisfaction that none of them were retarded at all. We went to the Salinas School District first and said, deal with it, put them back in the classes. And they would not, and so we brought the lawsuit.
And then we sued the state of California because the Department of Education had the duty of oversight. And eventually we settled the case and basically did away with the EMR classes, and thereby, I think, educationally helping the lives of thousands of people.
It really led to CRLA legislating the first state bilingual education law in the United States.
One of the many issues that we were facing were constant attacks and investigations by outside sources trying to undermine CRLA, and that was really taking up a lot of resources and diverting the attention and work of the program.
Even when I joined CRLA, the governor was unhappy because we kept suing him. And worse, we kept winning. We won because the government agencies, including Ronald Reagan, the governor, and others, were simply violating the law so clearly.
There were so many attacks on CRLA because they were winning. They were actually bringing justice to farm workers. And the establishment didn't like that. And that's when they formed the Euler Report in order to attack CRLA. The commission reviewed 127 charges against CRLA, not one of which was found to be true or relevant. And so CRLA won, and it was a big victory for not only CRLA, but for legal services and for the ability then to form the Legal Services Corporation and continue the program.
50 years ago, my father could have been a client of CRLA's. He was a farm worker in a bracero, and I am a first-generation English learner. Today I am here, and I am honored and thrilled to be CRLA's Deputy Director. But it's not lost on me that I am here because of the work that a group of people did 50 years ago to make this a possibility for me and people like me. And that's what CRLA does. We fight for justice. We make change.